Hello, everyone. Welcome to our session today. We've already introduced ourselves, but yeah, I'm a Tatango's senior customer success manager for the last few years, but my background has been in both customer success and professional services for the last 15 years.
I'm Costin. I have been with SAP for about 6 months. Prior to that, I was with Tatango. So I've been a CSM for Tatango and now work on the business solutions team under Shelby Zarnata, who you met earlier during the keynote.
Hi, I'm Michelle McBride.
Nope.
Hi, I'm Michelle McBride, and I'm with SAP as well. And I've been with SAP for about 3 years. I was a customer engagement executive and then moved into our cloud customer engagement space and helped with the configuration of Tatango and now work on the process side.
Thank you. So this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to go through a business outcome supply chain, as well as talk about the metrics architecture for that metrics design system. We'll talk about how we'll go ahead and implement some of these as goals and KPIs within our success blocks. And then Costin and Michelle will go through how SAP uses Tatango to report on these success metrics both internally and externally. Oh, and we also have a handout. So if you didn't get one on the way in, there should be a handout, so you should make sure that you get one. So here's a quote from George Forrest from Six Sigma. Six Sigma is a B2B company who focuses on providing effective metrics for process improvements. So I'll give you guys a moment to read through this. So I think this speaks to how well-informed we really need to be about our own business, because if you're looking to create those business outcomes, such as customer satisfaction as well as like high retention, we really need to be developing and utilizing effective metrics, because that's the only way we'll be able to drive improvements that we need, as well as focus our people on what's really important. So in order to create this business outcomes, we have a supply chain concept. And it really starts with having engaged and satisfied employees who are doing the right actions at the right time for the right customer. And if we're able to do this, that should create for our customers, within the customer journey, these really positive engagements and touch points for them, which will fuel loyal customer sentiment, which is going to be a leading indicator for loyal customer actions that we're looking for and ultimately towards our business outcomes. So now that we understand the business outcome supply chain, let's go ahead and see how we can layer in some of those metrics. And we see we have a pyramid. So the bottom, the base of the pyramid is going to be the employee section, and the top of it, the actual pyramid, will be the customer. So we'll start off at the bottom with employee sentiment. So if we're looking to see how inspired and engaged our employees are about customer success. Most companies have some sort of employee NPS or employee opinion survey, or some type of index that will help them gauge like how engaged our employees are, right? And from there, you can actually do some problem solving and detection. And that brings us to the next level with employee actions. So if we're looking for our employees to be doing the right action at the right time for the right customer, then we're looking at, are we completing the success plays that we're launching and triggering? Are they completing the tasks? Are they engaging with the customers? Are they logging the touch points? Are we sending out those reference invitations and creating those account plans? And the next level there would be, if we're able to do that, then our customers should be experiencing these positive engagements and touch points with us, right? So we're going to want to understand from a metric standpoint, how are those individualized experiences? So how did we do on that onboarding, right? So we can measure that in CSAT. Or if it was support related, how did we do on that last support call? What does that mean time to resolution? Or how have we handled that last escalation? So if we're able to do all of that, then that should fuel a very loyal customer sentiment, where our customers are going to be which would measure the overall relationship, right? So this will be the sum of all of the experiences that our customers having with us as a company and with us as a brand. And this would be on a relationship side, like NPS, or if it would be customer effort score, like how easy is it for our customers to be doing business with us? So, Joe Titchener from Waystar, if I asked you, how likely would you be to recommend Tatango? From a 0 to 10, what would you say?
Absolutely
10, yes. Let's send him an NPS score right after this, please. So that's great, right? So we're looking for our customers to give us these positive NPS scores. So if they do give us these promoter scores, that shows that willingness, right, or that potential to do something for us, right, to recommend us. But they may not actually necessarily have recommended us yet, right? So that would be the difference between a likelihood to do it, right, or the willingness to do so, and the actual customer actions. And that would be, you know, have they done a support call for us? I'm sorry, have they done a reference call for us? Have they attended one of our events or even spoke at one of our events? Are they responding to those 10 to 15 surveys that we're sending out per year? But it also will include utilization and consumption, right? So them actually using our products and our services. And ultimately, that'll lead to the business outcomes that we're looking for. So this would include outcomes for our customers as well as outcomes for your business. So outcomes for your customers will vary depending on the products and services that you provide. But generally, the outcomes for our business would be revenue growth. Are we hitting those high renewals? And are we hitting our expansion and sales targets? So now that we understand that metrics design system, let's go ahead and see how we can accomplish some of that within Tatango. So success blocks is one of the ways that we can do that. How many of you guys know what a success block is? Excellent. How many of you guys implemented a success block? Very good. So success blocks, as we've been talking about, are modular units of value and success that helps us achieve our customer results faster. They're configurable modules. They can represent a customer journey stage, or it can represent a CS program or initiative that we're running. But it's just a way for us to organize our goals, our KPIs, as well as the processes that go along with them to drive those goals. So an example here would be an onboarding success block. So those of you that do onboarding with your customers, you might want to set up a life cycle stage. I like to call them mini life cycle stages because when the life cycle stage of onboarding, you'll have these mini life cycle stages. So you might go through kickoff, you might go through a planning phase, configuration, then maybe you'll go live and then you'll complete the onboarding process. So we can see that if we are going to set a goal to consistently meet implementation timelines, we can see we've got 19 accounts right now within onboarding. We can see that breakout by status as well as by health, so we know exactly where our customers are in this process. And then we're going to go ahead and set, you know, a duration for that. So if we're looking to complete onboarding within 60 days, how are we doing that, right? So if we see a number of 30, we're doing pretty well, right? But if we track that over time, we can see that, you know, maybe we can get our clients even faster to an even faster time to value. But if we're seeing numbers like 65 or 70, then that indicates there's a problem that we need to kind of dive into. We might also want to deliver a great experience for our new customers. So the metric system around that would be how many support tickets we might be opening, what does that NPS look like post-onboarding, and then from a risk mitigation perspective, you know, do we have any delayed kickoffs, and what is that associated ARR? And then for adoption, you know, depending on your products and services that you're offering, you're going to want to put up some metrics that will measure, you know, consumption and utilization. Or you might want to increase feature or module adoption. So what that means is, like, if you have a core module that is super sticky for your customers, you're going to want to measure that adoption, right? Or you can actually, if you're rolling out a new feature, you might want to measure that. And if it's not trending the way that you expect, then you want to trigger some processes that's going to have your CSMs follow up, right? Or raise awareness or send out some campaigns. And then over on the right, you also want to understand your engagement model and if our CSMs are reaching out and engaging at the appropriate times. So some things that you might want to measure would be, are we doing those business reviews? Are we having those executive alignment calls? And if you have a different engagement model for your different customer segmentations, then you're going to want to separate those out into your customer segments. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Michelle.
Thanks a lot.
I clicked for you.
Yeah, if you could. Thank you. Thank you very much. And to Tango, thanks for having us. It's great to be here and be able to tell our story. It's been a fun journey, let's just say that, but very exciting to launch this global implementation and tell you all about it. And so Costin and I are going to walk through our success blocks at a high level and tell you more about our metrics. So this is a really high-level timeline of our onboarding process, and just wanted to introduce you to this because the two reports I'll show you are tied to our process. And really behind this, before we even start talking about process, is our data. So Shelby and Carrie gave a great overview this morning about what drives this, but really we have almost 250 data attributes driving this and 37 files, right? So, it's quite an undertaking. In addition, we do have CEEs, CSMs, and other CE professionals entering data into the system using the life cycle
Stages.
yeah, stages that you saw on the previous slide. So lots of data coming in, and so we have used our customer lifecycle management playbook to also drive our process. So you see some of that demonstrated here, and then we translated that into the functionality within Tango. So for example, for onboarding, we have a number of success plays that will be triggered based on the data coming in to our CEEs or CSMs, and then that is going to initiate a behavior that's aligned to that playbook. And then, in most cases, either they're going to engage with our customers based on our harmonized processes, or they have the ability through the life cycle stages. That to manually trigger an email to the customer. So it's really fantastic, I think. We could probably talk about it for about much longer. But you can see here, we do have some success plays triggering at key points. We also have campaigns triggering. So we do have the automated welcome email upon contract sign date. We also have the sophistication to know that they're a current customer but may have expanded into a different line of business. So that's also automated. And then based on the contract start date, the CE does get information regarding the steps to follow in order to have a fantastic customer experience for our customers. So we really have two customers, right? We have our SAP customers, but we also have our internal Tango users. So if you want more information on how we've managed that change management, we do have a session tomorrow morning, so you can hear all about that journey. And then one other key point are our implementation milestone tracking. So I'm sure many of you, I'm sure I could do a raise of hands here, who's completed Excel spreadsheets to track your projects and implementations, right? Probably many of you. So the implementation milestone tracking also uses the life cycle stages within Tango to gather the data regarding the implementation. Key pieces like actual go-live dates, target go-live dates, the risk, the status, key information that you need to roll that up to managers, to leaders, and really CEs. If you have a low-touch model and you're keeping track of things, instead of Excel, you can use Tango, so it's really great. So, next slide. So just to give you an example of one of our reports that we're using, you can see 3 lines here on the graph. So this is something we use to track adoption, and it also is something we use for our CS operations team. So the purple line is, let's, for example, say there's a net new customer that joins SAP. The information about the order will come through the data stream, and the customer will get a success, the CE will get a success play, and then that information will also post to the account. So the CEE will get that, and they'll say, oh, hey, I have a new customer, and they will follow the information in the task. Our typical workflow is going to be asking the CEE to most likely trigger an email manually, and we made that a specific manual decision just because many of you know sometimes there's things going on with an account. You might not want an automated email going out at a certain time, so we gave that autonomy to our CEE professionals in order to enable them in a great way and also help them adopt the desired behavior. And then the last piece is the blue line. So we're making sure the customer also received the campaign. So our CS ops team will use this just to make sure everything's working great. We have visibility that the emails are going out to the customers. All right. And then this is a report that shows our implementation analysis. So just like we were talking about earlier, the implementation tracking we're able to roll up all of this information into reports, and we use some of this information as well through other metrics, other reports, so that we get really great visibility into the current health of our customers. So that's it. Costin.
Thanks. Keep your mic. Okay, so I'm going to talk, Michelle went pretty deep into onboarding. I'm going to keep a bit more of a surface level look at 3 more success blocks within Tatango. So we have adoption, relationship, and escalation. And those are also loosely correlated with the idea of the 3 lenses that we talked about, right? So customer success outcomes and metrics, internal customer success operations metrics, and then company objectives, company metrics, right? So starting with the adoption success block, this is an example of some of the scorecards that we are using specifically to measure this customer outcome of adoption. So we start with the metric of entitlement consumption, which is the ratio of registered users over licensed users, for very simple terms. But this is it's a most commonly used metric at SAP across the many lines of business, right? So this is our lowest common denominator, and it allows us at a super high level to be able to see what's going on with adoption of our solutions at scale, right, across all lines of business. So you can see the top one is to maximize that's an example of a goal in a scorecard where we're using that entitlement consumption metric to drive upsell and expansion opportunity investigation, right? The second one on the list is the login frequency risk. So this is still a relatively new metric for us, and it's not yet operationalized. But the one thing that's great about Tatango's success blocks is that it enables us to view on scorecards both the metrics that we have operationalized, like entitlement consumption, and login frequency, which is not yet operationalized, but allows us to analyze before we make decisions about how we want to do that. Next slide, please. Okay. So this is an example of a report looking at the same metrics, right? So scorecards are great for a simple and quick high-level look to answer a specific question that's usually pretty simple, right? But adoption metrics are not simple, right, when you try to tell a bigger story and at scale. So we've grouped the 5 buckets of adoption with entitlement consumption into 5 segments, and they're being tracked in Tatango as a simple trend line for each, right? And this really enables us to manage these analysis tools centrally, right? So this screenshot is taken from the admin success team, right? And but across the roughly 200 success teams that we have, those users are going to see this report looking different based on the scope of what they're supposed to see. So this singular central report pushed out to the field is we're able to customize the relevancy of this report depending on what the field is responsible for. Next slide. Okay. And the next one is with breakdowns. Breakdowns live underneath reports, and they don't trend, but they give you a snapshot right now into breaking down these reports in a wide variety of ways. This is super useful for us at this scale because we can see on the left side you can see all the lines of business, right? So these are breakdowns for each one of those key entitlement consumption metrics, broken down by line of business in a very simple, clean, easy to understand way. Okay, so this is an example of our relationship success block, and this is through the lens of internal customer success operations, right? So this is a metric of CS sentiment is actually externally facing, meaning where this is the CS professional's opinion on the relationship of an account. But we on the operations team are interested in rolling out this initiative at scale across the board and trying to get a CS sentiment value in place for every account where it's relevant, right? So these scorecards give us an idea of how we're doing, right? So we can see like that on that scorecard on the right, the trend of CS sentiment is undefined. We want that to be 0, right? That's a good trend to have, that we've pushed this initiative and these are the results that we're able to track internally. But again, this is not anything to do with customer success externally. This is just about the operations team and our ability to roll out the changes and that we're looking to roll out. Slide. And this is the same concept, but looked at in a report, right? So instead of an individual scorecard telling a story one by one, we're now using this to tell the story of CS sentiment at scale across the board. Some cameras up, so I'm going to hold on.
Sorry.
Okay. Good. Okay, and this is same concept. The breakdowns live underneath the report, but for a complex organization like SAP, these breakouts are invaluable because we're able to now see, by line of business, but also by region. Essentially, we can pivot in any direction that we want and allow us to see these reports, again, managed centrally, pushed out to the field, but the breakdowns give us ways to look at this data in countless ways. Next. Okay, so this one is an SAP outcome, right? This is an example of our escalation success block, and a primary metric that we use to drive that block is support incidents by priority level. So you can see these 3 buckets here. There's very high, there's high, and there's escalated, right? And each are color coded. So this report gives us a view into the volume of support, again at scale, and with the filtering ability that on top, and also with success teams, we're able to tell us a story that's maximally relevant to the field based on what they're responsible for. One more. Okay. And this is a breakdown of that same report. And again, just to highlight breakdowns more, I had touched on CS sentiment before as a metric that we're using internally, but this is an example of how we can pivot and to look at support tickets through the lens of something that we're trying to accomplish, right? So with the CS sentiment rollout, each of those buckets of green, yellow, red, they're qualified with the support volume kind of by each one of those classifications. This is an example of how reports can bring in your disparate data from various sources and tell new creative stories that you haven't been able to before because you haven't had that data all in one system. Yeah, and I think that's
transition back to Ella. So I just wanted to kind of wrap this up on what we discussed today. So in our session, so we really learned about the business outcomes supply chain as well as that metrics architecture and how we would layer in all of that for your metrics design system. We went into how we would implement some of these as goals and KPIs within our success blocks. And then we should have a handout for all of you. And then SAP talked about, Michelle and Costin talked about how they're using Tatango to report on all of these success metrics. So with that, I think we can go ahead and open it up for some Q&A. So I mean, I'll take that, and then you guys can also answer that as well. But we do track it as an attribute, and there's various ways that you can do that. You can do a reverse NPS. So if you were to ask your CSMs, would your customer be likely to recommend you? That would be one way to go. And we have other ways, like we can do like at risk or engaged or things like that. But depending on what it's going to mean the most value for you guys.
We use it as an attribute. It sits on the header for all account profiles, and it's a key part of our health model today, and it drives about a handful of other reporting, but it's a key piece of our engagement model, and it lives, like I said, it's an account attribute.
Nathan?
Are you using that account attribute if there's multiple lines of business with the same customer? You're filling out that attribute multiple times, or is it one?
Yes.
How do you define one?
Yes. One CS sentiment value for each line of business. Yeah.
Do we have any other questions?
On the same topic, do you have success plays that run in the back dependent upon what the sentiment score is? Or is it just a number you take into account internally?
So today that isn't included in our success plays, but it's on the table for an idea to explore. So, but yes, it certainly can be.
Yes.
Yeah, as far as external feedback is concerned, I know in one of the earlier talks, it was mentioned that you want to know exactly how that person's feeling and why they're feeling that way. Is there any information that you're kind of ingesting into the solution to define your engagement that's tied to that?
Yeah, my boss is back there, and she wants to take this one.
You're talking about experience.
Like a survey or scores and how you create.
So there's a few
success over
angles
those.
on that. Can you hear me? Okay.
Would you like the mic?
No, I'm good. I can speak. There's a few angles on that. So we're pursuing a couple things. One is, how do we integrate Qualtrics into Tango? So we can actually get experience feedback from our end users. Two, customers. So underway and significant effort. I don't know when it's going to happen, but they're also trying to integrate Qualtrics into our products. So that becomes a new, very rich piece of data about how our customers not only are using our products, but what they feel about our products. So those are really the two angles right now. One, the one about customers we really don't have any control over. We'll consume it when it's ready. The one about the Tatango integration, I'm super excited about because you can run, surveys offline, do SurveyMonkey or wherever, but just getting that experience when they're in the product and understanding, you've launched me these 12 tasks and frankly, I don't understand it. I need some more enablement. It didn't do anything to impact the outcome type feedback in the moment is way more critical than trying to weave through that in just one big survey blast. So we're really excited about doing that integration into the Tatango product so we can get end user feedback, which I think might happen for all of Tatango customers eventually, since Qualtrics is integration. I'm not talking roadmap at all.
I know some customers using Qualtrics right over here. Any other questions?
One question here.
Yes.
So my question is about how do you manage multiple product lines with, for example, one live stage success blocks. Do you, for each product line within that success block, do you have multiple dashboards for each product line?
No, that's the cool part about the blocks and the success teams is that we're able to set up consistent scorecards that are used throughout SAP's field. And then the account set of a success team, getting super technical here, that actually is what drives the relevant and customized experience for every user. So yes, we're able to set up the scorecards, reports, everything you just saw, all that central, and it's pushed out to the field and managed through success blocks.
But to answer your product question, so earlier I talked about the 3 levels of our hierarchy. Product is the bottom level.
Right.
This is exactly where we actually take the inputs on the implementation phases and milestones. And through the onboarding block, that's where we present at the product level for the segment. We can also present LOD level details about that. So the user doesn't really know, right? Like, hey, I'm going to a product level to enter this. It's all through a segment. So we're not sending them to a bunch of different screens. We're sending them to a segment.
Okay.
It's kind of like you're updating Excel online, sort of. And they seemingly like that experience, so.
That's interesting. Thanks.
Do we have any other questions? Yes.
What's your process to iterate on these metrics, figuring out if they do the job that you want them to do, pick them, or if you need to, replace them by something else, or how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's part of our run model, right? Which there's another session specifically on this, right? But it's along with, hey, we have a new group of users that we want to bring to Tatango. What are the requirements for that? These teams are responsible for analyzing what's working, what isn't, not just from a data perspective, but process as well, right? So the analysis of these metrics and the various ways they're displayed here is part of our run model.
I would also add too, I mean, our leaders are using this. We hear from our leaders. They'll call us, they'll say, what is this information? We get their feedback, and so we take a lot of the comments, not only from our end users, but also our leadership team, and integrate that into our business requirement process.
Yeah, and referencing back to earlier's keynote as well, we have another block, which we didn't talk about here, but that's okay. It's the executive spotlight. And that's used to roll up all these metrics to understand the health of customers across portfolios and lines of business. So there's a governance model around it, asking questions. Why are these customers not targeted to meet their target go live? Why are these ones at risk? There's a whole governance model that's using these metrics to drive those actions and conversations. Now, the other part of your question is, we're 8 months into the go live, right? And so you're right. I mean, all of this kind of looks like it'll work on paper, and then you're like, okay, we're doing it. Now, what's the impact on outcomes? What are we renewing at a better rate? Are we upselling? Are we, gaining more references across more products? And that's where our focus area is now through 2020 on what are those metrics, right? What is really going to tie all the upstream to the downstream, so we know that what we're doing upstream actually has impact, or does it, and then adjust again.
Yes.
Are you monetizing CSM?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Monetizing?
Monetizing. That's beyond the scope of my influence into that.
There's probably a really complex answer to that question, along with everything else that you know about complexity that we presented this morning. But we have different levels of customer success management. There is a preferred success or fee subscription model. There is a customer engagement model that is part of certain customers over a certain ACV with a certain footprint. There's multiple different go-to-market models. Yes, believe it or not, multiple different CS roles. So the monetizing comes in when we're actually charging something for it. But not our domain, really. That's the whole delivery.
So I think there's to add to that, I think there's different, structurally there could be different models for this. So some organizations will, have a plan, a service level plan to have a managed CSM. Is that what you're referring to? Yeah. And then others will not, so it just depends. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you so much.